watching The Pulse. Now, there's a need for us also to break down the figures for you and look at the genesis of this matter. Some of the issues that are coming out of that interview, first of all, has got to do with fuel prices. Isaac Kofi Eje is with our research desk, joining me in studio now to help us understand what's happening. So, Isaac, run us through the figures as we have it now, the genesis point.
So,
yeah.
Just as you said, let's look at what is causing this whole problem. So let's start with Ghana.
Right.
So we know fuel prices right from January to April has gone up more than 40%. And then when fuel prices go up, what does it translate into? Transport fares will also go up. And when transport fares go up, it will have an impact on price of goods and services. So that's when you have your normal sachet water, cement, kinke, cocoa, and then tin tomatoes also, having an increase in terms of price. So that's why we are feeling this pinch. Now, the next slide, talks about inflation. Okay, so Blessed, right from December December 2021 to February 2022, you can see an upward trajectory when we look at the inflation figures. So right from 12.6% in December 2021 to 15.70% in February. So
there was a rise even between January and February.
Exactly.
2022.
Exactly. So if you look at on the face of inflation alone, you could see an upward trajectory, and this is expected to to be felt in the normal market with fuel prices and other things. Now, another bit we can also look at when you look at the next slide is the Russia-Ukraine tension.
Okay, so these are external factors.
Exactly. So this is an IMF figure we are looking at, an IMF chart we are looking at here.
Okay.
And the IMF is projecting that developing countries are to feel the pinch even more than developed countries in this Ukraine-Russia tension in terms of consumption, how much consumers spend on food. So when you look at advanced economies, for instance, they spend a little over 10% of their annual income on food. Latin America, they spend a little over 20%. Emerging Asia also 20%. Central and Eastern Europe 20%. But if you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, we spend 40% of our income every year,
and that's where Ghana finds itself.
So if anything should happen to fuel prices on the globe, Sub-Saharan African countries or developing economies are being projected to feel it, to feel the pinch more than even developed economies. So you can see rocketing, price of food items such as rice, corn, and then wheat on the international market, just because.
So cereals are also affected, and we know that part of the inputs for KK, for instance,
is corn.
Yeah. So obviously that will be affected.
So we are not in this alone. Actually, we are not in this alone. But the bottom line is just as I said. When you look at the next slide, the bottom line is that when it comes to eating expenses, as far as the Ukraine-Russia war is concerned, IMF is projecting that consumers in countries with lower income spend more on food and are most affected when those prices rise. We find ourselves in the developing countries, so we feel the pinch.
Do we have any projections on how this may be going forward in terms of the forecast and what the experts are telling us?
Going forward, we are still waiting for the inflation figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, but the Russia-Ukraine war is still in session, and then we're just hoping that calm is restored so that the economy will get back to its normal trajectory. Until then, it's still not. You can't really project because there's still much of a uncertainty around the whole global economy in terms of fuel prices, goods and services, and other things. So
we're doing 15.70. Are we likely to top at 16?
Well, let's hope and see, and see the figures from Ghana.
Isaac Kofi Eje, with our research desk, I'm grateful that you've been able to give us a background to this. This is The Pulse. Stay with us. We'll bring you some more stories shortly. Well, so there's a need for us to get expert opinions on this. Unfortunately, we're joined by Anthony Forson, who's one of the experts looking at the figures and why we're having a sharp rise in the prices of cereals particularly. He understands what's happening on the international market and how that's having a ripple effect on the prices of commodities, including cereals as well. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us. So what's your take on the complaints that we've unraveled in our Living Standard series?
Well,
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
okay, so thank you very much, and very good evening to your cherished viewers. Yeah, so I'll be following the discussion, and there is a lot to attribute to the increase in the current grains and cereal price hikes. But primarily in Ghana, we have been having this challenge even before the COVID, and also before the Russian war. The Russian war has only affected the areas of agro inputs and also wheat. But when it comes to maize, we have had some very astronomical increase in the maize particularly, because I do remember somewhere around 2015, 2016, we were buying 50 kg of maize around 45 to 48 cedis. But fast forward to 2020, that jumped to around 150. And as it stands now, we are buying maize around 160, 170 for the same 50 kg.
Right.
So it has been a multiplicity of challenges with regards to productivity, cost of inputs, skills of farmers, and also the climate change.
And looking at the data that we have, part of the reasons is being attributed to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, when these issues come up, many are not able to break it down and take it at their own level as to how come a conflict that's happening far away, miles away from us, is impacting inflation here in Ghana. Yeah, Morrison?
Yes, I don't know if I can hear you well.
Yeah, yes. I was just talking about how sometimes you have a situation where many people are not able to reconcile the findings that we're getting, for instance, from the IMF and some other scientific data, pointing to the fact that, for instance, what's happening, external shocks, such as what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, is affecting what's happening to our inflation in the country. How are you able to break it down for the average Ghanaian to get the connection as to why we're seeing that sharp rise?
Yes, even before I do that, mostly we do follow data primarily from the United States Department for Agriculture. Okay. And if you look at their current database that was released yesterday, we're looking at the domestic corn production of between 2022 to 2023, which was forecasted to be at 2.5 million metric tons. If you look at their projections for us, based on our country figures, we're looking at about 7% low projection, even based on the 2021-2022 estimate of 2.7 metric tons. So corn production in Ghana is predominantly rain-fed and dependent. And the unfavorable weather forecast that has been announced by the Ghana Meteorological Services Authority also contributes, which I said climate change, contribute to the yields of this. And also, most of the farmers have also moved from producing maize to rice. And this is where I normally say that we do have a challenge as a country. What informs the farmer is the government making the right projections and making sure that the farmers are going according to the projections, because, we have more than 4 million smallholder farmer population in the country, and we do not inform them as to what the market derivatives are or the market demands are. So they produce what they think was the previous season was lacking or was selling higher. So there are a lot of things that's going to this, and this lies on the government coming up with very strategic framework that will, of course, help farmer population to decide how the country priority is going with regards to food security. So we need to have a very, maybe a well-balanced database, well-informed, that will help us to look at the market forces, look at the demands, both from livestock, factory, and also human consumption, and also exports. We need to juxtapose these four categories properly so that we'll be able to inform our commercial farmers and also smallholder farmers as to what they should produce this season, next season, and in the coming season. Because most of our farmers
touching on the external
factors.
Themselves. And I was just touching on the external factors as well. If you could just break down the connection for us.
Say that again.
We were talking earlier about the external factors. We talked about the Russian-Ukraine war, and you were about drawing the linkages for us.
Yes. So with the external factors, we've seen prices of fuel going up astronomically in the past days due to the fact that we import a lot of crude oil from Russia and Ukraine, and that has affected the cost of transportation. And you know, in Ghana, when the when transportation of fuel goes up, it affects everything across board. Now, if you look at that as well, another major reason we are not looking at is that Brazil and also Argentina has restricted the quantity of exports. And no one is looking at that. You see, these are the kind of projections government needs to be studying. They need to build an intelligence system across commodity areas. Now, with Ukraine, we have seen the effect of wheat. But let me say that the projected effect of wheat is not yet being felt, because as a country, we import more of our wheat from US rather than Ukraine and Russia. And also the derivatives of the wheat, such as the flour, the wheat flour and all that, are all not imported from Russia and Ukraine. So we are not feeling it. If you go to the areas of Turkey and Egypt, that depends primarily on import of wheat and other derivatives from Ukraine and Russia. Their prices have increased astronomically to about more than 60%. So this is the time we need to start looking at what are the mitigating effects. First, we need to adopt local content in some of the things that we do, which is highly important. We can adopt maize, we can adopt cassava flour, we can go for orange flesh sweet potato flour. So these are some of the things that we need to be looking at.
And how about personal budgets as well? From the forecast that you have and the data that you're referring to, are you projecting that there'll be food inflation in the coming days?
Yeah, of course, because if the projections that we are looking at currently on my screen, there is a projection quite lower than we expected. We were expecting before the Russian war came in. And also the fact that most farmers this year would not be producing what they produced or the acreage they produced last year. If they did 10 acres, they may be doing other 7 or 5 as a result of the cost of inputs, okay? Because if you look at it, for instance, NPK have shot up from 180 to 360 to 400. Urea is getting close to 500 cedis, right? So these are high costs right now. What we need to be looking at as a country is we need to start going back to the fundamentals. Do you have a garden? If you have a garden, what does your family consume more? Cassava, pineapple, plantain, whatever you have, you think you consume more. You plant it, you populate it in your garden. There are other innovations. So, for instance, the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana is working around to come up with a public training across board in various training, especially using the sack farming to train people how to produce their own foodstuffs and also other vegetables and the likes. So we need to now looking at how we can use our own innovative skills, innovations and several others to produce what we can we eat. Otherwise, Operation Feed Yourself is in full swing.
That conversation here, Anthony Morrison, CEO for the Chamber of Agribusiness. Thank you for spending some time with us.